Good morning to everybody. Yeah, you can certainly see the videos online at any time. We have them in Spanish, and hopefully a bit later in the year we will have them also in French and Portuguese. So don't worry, you haven't missed out. I'd like to thank also UNEP very much for inviting me to present this first in a series of 3 webinars on the findings from our project Growing Coffee Without Endosulfan, which FAO was kindly one of the donors. Can I just check you can all hear me okay like this? Try not to move then. Okay, so this is the first time I've done a webinar, so please be patient if I'm a little slow on manipulating it. Here we go. Just to give you a little background of where and how we collected the information. We visited 22 farms back in 2013, and we deliberately chose 2 different coffee growing regions in Latin America because they have different coffee flowering and fruiting patterns. And as you heard in the video, that's really important because it influences the pest and also how you manage it. So we went to Colombia, where they have this continuous flowering and harvesting, and also to 2 countries in Central America, where you have a very definite dry season and a very definite flowering period and one main harvest period. We also wanted to find out what farmers are doing on a range of farms, from small holdings like Doña Meritza that you saw, right up to large estates like La Lila estate in Colombia. And all but one of the farmers we interviewed are certified under 1 or more sustainability standards, such as fair trade. You can see them listed up there. So that meant that all the farmers had several seasons at least of not being allowed to use endosulfan under those standards. Some of them had many years of not using it. So that meant they had all developed effective alternative control methods, and that was what was of interest to us. You can see our funders down there below, who I would like to acknowledge because it was a very good combined effort from the public sector and the private sector in doing this collaborative project, which we also did with 4C Coffee Association, of which we're a member. So what I'd like to do now is go through some more points about this particular integrated pest management method, cultural controls, reinforcing some of the things that you saw in the video, but also bringing out additional points. And as many of the farmers we met highlighted, carrying out effective field sanitation to remove the berries, which are the breeding sites for the borer, this really is the backbone of management for this particular pest. It's a tricky pest to control because it lives for much of its life. It's hidden inside the bean, where you're not going to be able to reach it with insecticides or biopesticides. Some farmers, depending on where their location is, particularly if they're at high altitude, where the pest is generally far less problematic, so some farmers are able to manage it well just with very good cultural controls. But most farmers, particularly those in areas where you get medium or high pest pressure, they are generally going to have to complement cultural controls with other IPM methods. So they're going to be combining at least 2 methods, really. And in the other seminar series, we'll talk about biological pesticides and about trapping as 2 examples. But for all those farmers, really the starting point is good field sanitation. Now, we didn't just ask farmers how they manage the pest, but we also asked them a set of questions so that we could assess the pros and cons of the different IPM methods that they reported that they are using. So obviously, first one is how effective are cultural controls in managing this pest? And the consensus is, from all the farmers we met, really is that they can be very effective, but you've got to do them well and you've got to do them at the correct time. And you can see there about a third of the farms in Colombia and a third in Central America generally were able to control the pest only using cultural controls. An important tip that came out is, and I think that was explained on the video as well by the people from La Lila estate in Colombia. They said, if you prune your coffee trees regularly and you renew your plots, that's replanting or grafting, every 6 or 7 years or so, that makes your trees smaller. It makes it much quicker and easier for the workers to do the cultural controls and therefore cheaper. So it's not just how you do the controls themselves, but also many different aspects of how you manage your coffee groves that will influence how effective your cultural controls are. Obviously, everyone wants to know how much it costs. This varies a lot, and because it's mainly about the labor costs of doing these sanitary pickings, that will depend on, obviously, your national daily wage rate for workers, but it also depends on whether you can sell any of the berries that you collect. You can read some of the estimates for the day's labor here. In Colombia, obviously, by doing a regular harvest of the ripening berries, you can obviously, you're earning money by picking those and then selling them. From the sanitary pickings, sometimes you might be able to get some beans you can sell as second grade. In Central America, it's variable. Certainly the post-harvest cleanup is a lot of work. But many farmers avoid actually paying the labor costs for that. And what they do is they invite local people, that might be landless people, people who haven't got much money, who live in the local area. They let them come into their groves after harvest and collect up all the leftover berries on the trees, all those fallen on the floor. And they allow those people to then go and sell them and earn themselves a bit of cash. It's generally going to be low-grade coffee, but it generates a bit of cash for the workers or the local people, and it allows the farmers to get a really good cleanup done virtually for free in their farms. All the farmers we talked to stress that while cultural controls may seem a lot of labor, actually it's a really worthwhile investment for them for the current season and the future season, because you're really helping to reduce the pest breeding and the subsequent damage that it can cause if you let it get out of control. Is it easy to implement? Well, yeah, it's really quite easy. However, this came out in the video, on large farms you really need to have workers supervised and motivated to do a good job. And as we heard, some farms may use special incentives to help with that. For small farms, yep, you can generally do these tasks with family members or maybe 1 or 2 part-time workers at certain times of year. It's quite a common practice for small farms. Obviously, you need to kill the borers in the berries that you collect. Most people do that by putting the berries in boiling water for a few minutes. Some people put them in sealed barrels for 24, 48 hours or so. And then you can then go and depulp them as normal and see if there's any coffee beans that you can actually use or sell from that process. Doesn't really need much training, but it's about good organization and supervision on big farms. And the farmers that we spoke to who are really keen on reducing or even replacing their chemical use, they said it's really works best for them having dedicated, specially trained workers to concentrate on these cultural control tasks. So, some other key points about this method of IPM. really important in terms of reducing the amount of pest breeding sites in your groves and thinking not just about this season, but the following season, protecting your crop for the future. Another point that several of the farmers said is that if you're not doing good field sanitation, then whatever chemical, biological, or trapping method you want to use is not going to work well. It's not going to be cost effective. So again, that goes back to cultural controls being the backbone, the starting point of managing this pest. You get a lot of variation in levels of borer between years, between locations, and you have also a lot of variation in the costs of control, labor costs, coffee price, etc. All those vary a lot year by year. Labor prices, etc. So really, the farmers need to develop their own IPM program, find out what works best for them in their particular situation. And another thing that's really important to stress is that field monitoring, so going out into the groves, observing how much borer you've got, where it is in the groves, what position it is in the berries. This is a really important tool for good decision making. Now, we don't have time to discuss that today, but there is a whole separate video on that, and you can see more in the project documents. But it almost goes hand in hand with cultural controls. It's thinking about really observing well where the pest is and its behavior in your coffee groves. So wrapping up now with some more general key findings from the Growing Coffee Without Endosulfan project. First of all, you can very well manage this pest without using endosulfan. All the farmers said that they're achieving very good control with a selection of IPM methods, and that's across a wide range of farm sizes, different climates, different altitudes, different production systems, different levels of farmer education, ages, etc. Number two, it came out strongly that it's a myth that endosulfan alternatives are always more expensive. This will come out also in the other videos, but farmers really don't consider IPM methods to be too costly. As they said, you know, it's an investment to guarantee not only good coffee quality, which can translate into better prices, but they also explain that it delivers benefits in worker welfare by not having to use hazardous endosulfan or other chemicals, and you're protecting wildlife, you're polluting less, etc. And finally, getting back to the seminar series this is part of, it's about implementing the Stockholm Convention phase out of endosulfan. And I think you know, certain countries may feel it's a bit worried what will happen to their coffee sector if they decide to ban endosulfan, because there are still some countries that have not yet formally banned or withdrawn it. And I think our findings show very much that taking that decision to make a ban is not going to cause havoc in the coffee sector. There are good IPM methods and a lot of experience already there to show that it is possible. However, you need both governments and the coffee sector to support training and advice for farmers. Colombia is an example of a country where that's been done really well. And also, it's not just about, you know, imposing a ban from governments. You really need farmer support organizations like cooperatives, sustainability standards like Rainforest, Fair Trade, and others, coffee research institutes. Together, they all play an essential role in phasing out endosulfan and replacing it with safer IPM methods. Here you can see where you can find out more about the project documents and the videos. They're kindly hosted by our collaborating partner, 4C Coffee Association. You've got the web links there, which you can go and have a look at afterwards. So we've got videos on 4 different topics. We've got a comparison of the pros and cons of the different methods. We've got detailed guidance on using the methods, which came from the farmers interviewed and also the technical support organizations that they work with. You can read case studies of the different farms there to see the individual story of each farm, and you can also see some useful presentations from the lesson learning workshop we had at the end of the project in 2013. Please also take part in the sessions we have next month. Will be on biological control, and then in March will be on trapping. So I'd just like to say thank you very much for your interest and your participation. And I'd also like to acknowledge all the farmers, like people like Doña Maritza here, who gave up their time, their experiences, and the technical support organizations who helped us meet those farmers. So thank you very much.